We are into the month of March. The weather's going to start warming up. Phillies baseball is now a daily thing for us in our routine. Welcome back to the Cherry Pinstripes podcast. We are going to dive a little bit deeper into spring training today. It's been 2 weeks since we jumped on the podcast. Next week, we're going to do a quick little recap similar to this episode, but then we're also just going to do an overall team review going into the season, what we expect the roster to look like. So subscribe, follow us on socials. Be prepared for weekly podcast here moving forward, and then we're covering every series once the season starts. Today, we're going to talk about some of the new guys on the roster. We're going to talk about some of these prospects. We're going to talk about the upside of this team overall. There's a lot of this team didn't do anything on social media. Let's talk about how they did get better, how they could be better than last year. And we're also going to talk about what I believe is just the overall anchor of this team and the pitching staff at the end. But we're going to dive into the pitching staff for most of this episode here today because they've looked great in spring training, starting with some of the new guys. Jesus Luzardo, back injury last year. There was a velo dip. He was coming off two really good seasons, 2022, 2023, injured last year. What will he look like this season? First start with the Phillies throwing 98 miles an hour, 97 average on the sinker and the four-seam, zone percentage over 50% on 3 out of the 4 pitches, whiff percent at 30%. He looks fantastic. He looks as good as you can look in 2 innings at the beginning of a spring training. This is a guy, last year you had Spencer Turnbull put in a lot of innings in the beginning of the season. He looked great as the 5. And then halfway through the season, we went to Taijuan Walker. That 5th spot in the rotation suddenly started turning into a every week occurrence. The bullpen's throwing extra innings. This team going into the season is looking like they're going to have 5 guys that could give the bullpen a day off. And Jesus Luzardo is right. He's a top-end guy. Jordan Romano, the other new guy on the team. Luzardo was traded for. Jordan Romano signed. He's pitched in 2 games so far. 0 ERA. He did give up 2 unearned runs in his second appearance. Velo is back up, though. That's the tick. Not much, only about a half of a run or a half a mile per hour. But the thing with Jordan Romano, just like Jesus Luzardo last year, banged up, injuries here and there. There were innings where he was only throwing 93, 94. His stuff never consistently looked right. So really, Jordan Romano going into the season, I just want to see the stuff. I don't even care about the stats with him. ERA is good right now, 2 unearned runs, but he's testing things out. This man, in his last appearance, threw 10 straight fastballs and then 8 straight sliders, and that was the appearance. 10 straight fastballs, 8 straight sliders, and velo was up. Spin rates were great. He had a clean first appearance with 2 strikeouts. Jordan Romano is a guy that's just 1 year removed from being an all-star closer. If he's right, it is a huge, if he's right, it's not just a pickup. It's a huge pickup for a team that lost 2 arms last year. Joe Ross, we talked about Joe Ross a little bit on the last podcast. He's a guy we brought in from Milwaukee. He converted to the bullpen second half of last season. Ironically enough, the Phillies have started him once and pulled him out of the bullpen once to start spring training. 3 innings, 2 runs as a starter, nothing as the reliever. And I said this in the last podcast. There was just something about Joe Ross out of the pen last year. Things were clicking. And the rotation is what it is. The 5th spot in the rotation isn't open. Joe Ross isn't a guy that you're going to stretch the rotation out to a 6th for. He's going to be in the bullpen when the season starts. And there's a lot of upside here. I love the upside here. Until I see him pitch bad out of the bullpen, I think that this could be Jeff Hoffman 2.0 for the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, another surprising thing for the Philadelphia Phillies so far in spring training, Gabriel Rincones Jr. He's got 3 home runs so far. He's hitting everything hard. He's got 2 opposite field home runs. I don't know if he can make this team. I don't think it's at all possible. But this man's been so good, MLB.com accidentally gave him a 4th home run. I got a Rincones home run update when he wasn't even in the game, and it took them 24 hours to take it off the website. That's how good this guy is. Now, we'll see just keep an eye on that. If you haven't been really keeping up with the Phillies just yet in spring training, keep an eye on this guy because the bottom of the bench, you may see this guy this season, even if it's not on day one. My second surprise so far in spring training, Twitter has been talking about this guy, though. Got him from Toronto, John McMillan. John McMillan is throwing 97-mile-an-hour missiles with a 40% whiff rate. 40% whiff rate last year, 66% on his fastball so far in spring training. 66% whiff rate in spring training on his fastball. That's disgusting. That's absolutely disgusting. There's really nothing else that even needs to be said there. We picked up Seth Johnson last year in a sneaky little trade. He's another guy you could see as a low leverage, early out of the bullpen reliever. John McMillan's, putting eyes on him. He's drawing some attention here. The Phillies, doesn't seem like they did a whole lot, but there's multiple new names in this bullpen here in spring training that are, I'm optimistic this bullpen might be even better than it was last year. Now we're going to move on to the prospects. Not a whole lot to say here. Let's be honest. Andrew Painter obviously isn't going to pitch in spring training. My guy Aiden Miller, 0 for 9, 2 walks, not getting regular at-bats just yet. Justin Crawford, though. Justin Crawford's 3 for 10, 2 walks, 2 stolen bases. And I want to talk about Justin Crawford a little bit because he's the guy last year out of this little core crop of prospects that the Phillies have right now that seems like he kind of turned the page a little bit last year. He leveled up mid-season last year. And I hate to say I might have been in attendance the very day things turned around, but he hit a home run against the Wilmington Blue Rocks second half of last year that left the bat at like 106 miles per hour. I was like, whoa, as soon as he hit it, I'm in row 1. Whoa, he hit the out of that ball. He went on a little tear after that. And, sometimes confidence is everything. And he's been rolling ever since that little hot streak he had in the second half of last season. He rolled it through the rest of the second half. He's looked good in spring training. You're going to see him probably start the year with the Iron Pigs in AAA. Who knows, If someone gets banged up or maybe someone starts the year, even a guy like Max Kepler were to start the year cold, if he tears up AAA, you could see him early. You could see him really early this season. So that's not, again, the Phillies don't have too much going on. Rincones has looked good. Crawford's looked good. Aiden Miller, 0 for 9. Not going to see Andrew Painter. But for the most part, we're seeing a bullpen tryout for this team, and eventually you're going to see the everyday starters start to get more innings. So the top of the crop has looked good for the Phillies. Don't think any of these guys are going to get traded at the deadline, but we'll see. Last year, a Starling Caba-type prospect came out of nowhere and ended up being a decent little return for us. So if the Phillies can make something out of nothing like they have before, maybe another prospect comes up the pipeline out of nowhere, you can get some value there. We'll see. But so far, so good for the prospects overall. Let's talk about the upside of this team. How do they get better? We've talked about the bullpen a little bit, but it's not just the bullpen. Christopher Sanchez averaged 94.5 miles per hour on his sinker last year. Elite 90-plus percentile changeup. He's throwing 98 in spring training. He's throwing 98. He's coming off a 180-inning season, and now he's throwing 3.5 miles per hour harder. His spin rates are up. He's in a rotation and a clubhouse of dogs. If we're talking about the pitching staff, dogs. He's learning from Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola. Now he's got another lefty, Jesus Luzardo, in here who's got good stuff that he can work with. 2024 was not a fluke. There's a very good chance he's even better this season. You might, if things go right, you could see a 200-inning season out of Christopher Sanchez. You get 200 innings from Christopher Sanchez and Jesus Luzardo's your 5. The bullpen's already better by just off of that. Takes so much stress off of the team. Aside from that, my guy Johan Rojas, he gets a lot of heat from the fan base, but I try to remind people, if this organization had any depth at outfield 2 years ago, he wouldn't even have been on the team. He was bumped up quick because he's the most athletic and defensively gifted outfielder in the entire organization. Every level. He's the best defender, and he's one of the best athletes. If there was someone else there that could hit, they would have progressed him a little bit more. He was on the Major League roster struggling in the playoffs. He didn't put himself there. All he did was play baseball. This guy just went to the Dominican Winter League, won Rookie of the Year and Gold Glove. 30 games, 111 at-bats. He batted .295 with a .771 OPS. He had some moments, too. I was seeing Johan Rojas highlights on my Twitter feed in December. He's a young, athletic kid. There's no reason why he can't get just a little bit better. I'm not telling you he's ever going to be some threat or super dangerous bat, but if he can just become a 750 OPS, a slight, just an average OPS guy, get on base a little bit, that's all you need. I feel like I've had this conversation 100 times over the last 2 years because the center field position has been an issue for the Phillies. You can count on one hand how many everyday center fielders are good defensively and good offensively. There's just not that many. 2 years ago, Brandon Nimmo was ranked the best center fielder in the National League. He's a good player. But I feel like in these back and forths about the position, we forget that. It's a shallow position. It's a shallow position. And when you can get platinum level defense like Johan Rojas gives to you, let him develop. Just let him develop. He's coming off a good winter. He's looked good in spring training, by the way. He's got a shoulder issue from a slide during the winter, so he hasn't been playing any defense. But they're getting him his at-bats. They're aware that he's coming off of a good winter. That's why they're DHing him to get him extra at-bats. There's no reason why Johan Rojas can't come out and have a decent season. Even if you still put him in the position that a lot of fans want, which is that flex outfielder bench guy, totally okay with that. I'm totally okay with that too. But I feel like the hate's a little bit unwarranted. And there can still be development with this guy's bat. The glove is major league. 100% major league. And my next guy, Orion Kerkering. A lot of the fan base talking about this. Kirk has been, at least in terms of the stats on his pitches, elite stuff. Elite stuff. He had a good season last year, but hasn't had a ton of high leverage innings. This year, you're going to see him get that chance to take over some high leverage innings with the departure of Jeff Hoffman and Carlos Estevez. And as again, Jordan Romano, though, looks, if he's right, he's the closer, lock him in. But Kerkering could end up being the, Kerkering or Strom, 7th, 8th inning, depending on who's coming up. He's going to be a high leverage inning guy, and he could end up asserting himself as one of the best relievers in baseball. I think he could be in that position better than Estevez and Hoffman were last year. So we'll see how that one plays out, but really high ceiling. Bryson Stott, didn't think I'd be talking about him like this during the spring, but that news of the elbow injury and, the fan base finding the exact at-bat where it happened and the splits with his stats from that day forward, it's very clear that he actually did have an elbow problem last year. So I am giving him a pass for what a lot of the fan base called a disappointing season offensively. I can't wait to see him come out healthy now. Now I'm really excited to see Bryson Stott hopefully 100% healthy going into the season, because just like Johan Rojas, at a shallow position, he's playing great defense every day. He's giving you a good floor. Let's see what the bat looks like health-wise. Again, Joe Ross, we talked about Seth Johnson a little bit. You're probably going to see those two guys 5th, 6th inning. Hopefully the 6th inning. Hopefully the Phillies don't need a whole lot of 5th inning from the bullpen this year. But, Joe Ross, Seth Johnson are two guys you'll probably see in the 6th inning this year if they make the roster. Jordan Romano can end up being an elite closer if he's right. Jesus Luzardo. Not only is Jesus Luzardo really good, top end possible stuff, he's slotting in as the 5. The 5? Jesus Luzardo and Ranger Suarez is your 4-5? Man, just... The ceiling is so high with this pitching staff. They really could be better than last year if things go right. Now, my last thing, and I've jumped on this guy so much here on this show, especially after the playoff series last year, but Alec frickin' Bohm, man. Alec Bohm. A lot of my critiques of Alec Bohm, again, I try and circle on this as much as I can. We're running out of time. The clock's ticking, This time next year, it's a contract year. I don't want to get rid of Alec Bohm. It's just when you look down the road and you look at what's currently going on with the team, you got to start thinking about decisions that are going to be made. So when he has a series like that in the playoffs last year, you got to have those conversations, And my biggest thing with Alec Bohm, it's not the slump, dude. Everyone slumps. Everyone has bad series or a bad month. The biggest thing for me is the mentality. When he's having a bad slump and he's sitting at the top step in the dugout and they put that camera on him and he's just moping and whining, and it's a different type. I am all for the passion, but like a Bryce Harper passion and a Alec Bohm passion are two different things, and they look different. And when the dugout sees it, the players see it. I want to see Alec Bohm. I don't want to say grow up, because he's a grown man. But in those situations where he's struggling, he's not seeing the ball well, he's popping up on the same fastball over and over and over again in a playoff series. I just want to see a little more dog and a little less wah. You know what I mean? Give me a killer. You're a 6'5" hot corner. Be a dog. Get mad. Don't get sad. Get mad. I want mad Bohm, not sad Bohm. Let's go. Alec Bohm was a huge reason why this team won the division last year. He was also a big reason why the lineup was struggling in the playoffs. And, we're talking about moving this lineup around, getting Kyle Schwarber out of the leadoff spot. A lot of that is because we're not getting any right-handed power production in the middle of the lineup, especially in big series. So if a guy like Bohm or a guy like Castellanos can step up and just be a monster, it does a lot for this team. And I know that's a double-edged sword, because Bohm technically did have a monster season last year, but he came up short when it mattered most. So that's what I need to see now. Do it when it matters now. That's it. Alec Bohm, all-star, good player. I don't know what that AAV is going to look like. I think he's a very awkward evaluation, especially at that position. A lot of teams are just going to, no, third base, I want good defensive power. He doesn't fit the mold that a lot of teams look at there. So it's a weird one. What teams are going to even want a third baseman? What does that value look like? It'll depend on what he does these next 2 seasons, and hopefully he goes into that offseason looking to make a ton of money, because it would mean he had 2 more really good years with the Phillies to finish things out. But last but not least, man, this pitching staff. I cannot talk about this pitching staff enough. The rotation top to bottom. Wheels is probably going to win a Cy Young, if not finish 2 or 3 again. Sanchez keeps getting better. Jesus Luzardo is big. Ranger Suarez in a contract year. Steady Knowles. This bullpen's deep. The floor for this team is so high. You can't tell me they don't look different than last year. I know the core's the same, but the core's good. So who cares? They made changes, and some of them have really high upside. I can't wait to watch this pitching staff go out there and dominate Major League Baseball this season, because no matter what's going on with the lineup, whether they're hot, cold, inconsistent, they're going to be able to win games 1-0 if they have to anyway. I believe they're going to score a bunch of runs. But if they don't, I think they're winning anyway. My dog of the week is Gabriel Rincones Jr. Our dog of the week is back, Gabriel Rincones Jr. It's about 3 homers. 3, 4 if you consider MLB.com. It never happened. Gosh, I'm so fired up, man. It's the offseason was a slow, stressful offseason coming off of that playoff loss, and I will admit it felt like a slow offseason, but some sneaky adds to this team, some sneaky pickups. They've all looked good so far in spring training, and we will be back next week to talk about the next week of games that are coming up starting tomorrow. Hit that subscribe button, follow us on all social media platforms. My name is Shelfy, and I'll see you in the next one. Go Phils.